Carney crumbles again under pressure from political elites and powerful predators. Since Mark Carney's unexpected rise to become Canada's Prime Minister after the snap federal election on April 28, 2025, his leadership has been marked by growing challenges and an increasingly visible struggle to maintain control. Initially welcomed as a highly qualified economist and former central banker, many hoped Carney would bring much-needed stability and expertise to the nation. However, his time in office has quickly revealed a different reality, one where he appears overwhelmed by the immense pressure exerted by entrenched political elites and powerful interest groups who dominate the country's political and financial systems. Rather than commanding the scene, Carney seems to be buckling under these forces, his image crumbling as public faith wanes. Carney's career trajectory has been closely intertwined with some of the most influential financial institutions worldwide, including the Bank of England and the Bank of International Settlements. While his supporters argue this experience equips him to handle Canada's economic challenges, many ordinary Canadians view it with suspicion. They see a leader deeply embedded within the global financial elite, a class that often appears distant from the everyday struggles of average citizens. This disconnect between elite circles and the public has only been magnified by lingering controversies surrounding Carney's associations, most notably a photograph from 2013 showing him with Ghislaine Maxwell, a central figure in the Epstein scandal. Though no direct wrongdoing has been proven, the image symbolizes the uncomfortable proximity between Carney and the powerful networks fueling widespread distrust. The Epstein scandal continues to haunt Western politics, casting a long shadow over numerous prominent figures. In the U.S., former President Bill Clinton's more than 24 visits to Epstein's private island have become a defining, damning fact of the case. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, despite being frequently targeted by media for alleged ties, has steadfastly denied ever visiting the island, maintaining that he cut ties with Epstein years ago following a personal dispute. No credible evidence has emerged to contradict Trump's claims, which fuels a sense among many that the Epstein issue has been weaponized against some while shielding others more closely aligned with the establishment. This selective accountability and uneven scrutiny only deepen the public's cynicism. In Canada, Mark Carney finds himself caught in the crossfire of these global controversies and domestic political battles. His elite background and close ties to international financial circles place him under intense scrutiny. The photo linking him to Maxwell is less about proven misconduct and more about optics. Symbols matter in politics, and this one casts a long shadow. It raises doubts about the values and alliances guiding Canada's leadership, especially at a time when Canadians face real economic hardships and political uncertainty. Carney's image as a trustworthy leader is increasingly questioned in the court of public opinion. When challenged directly about his connections or ethical standards, Carney's reactions have often seemed defensive and evasive rather than open and transparent. He describes himself as a dedicated public servant who sacrificed private sector riches to lead Canada during difficult times, but critics see a different picture, a cautious bureaucrat skilled at sidestepping uncomfortable questions. His failure to fully disclose financial details and reluctance to engage with tough scrutiny only fuel the growing perception that he may be more committed to protecting elite interests than serving the public good. Carney's leadership is also criticized for its lack of bold action on pressing issues. Canada faces mounting economic pressures, including complex trade negotiations with the European Union and the United States, volatile energy markets, and rising costs of living for many citizens. Yet, rather than providing clear solutions, Carney often resorts to blaming external actors for Canada's problems, citing EU trade barriers or American protectionism. This stance frustrates many Canadians, who see these excuses as deflections that avoid confronting deeper domestic challenges. Meanwhile, families struggle with inflation and housing costs, feeling increasingly alienated from political rhetoric that seems disconnected from their realities. His public speeches, often heavy with references to Canadian values and Muslim values, aim to project a message of inclusion and shared principles. However, these appeals have been met with skepticism. Many Canadians interpret them as superficial slogans, words chosen more for political correctness or optics than genuine commitment. The disconnect between these lofty ideals and the lived experiences of ordinary citizens only widens the gulf between government and public trust. This tension reflects a broader political crisis. The Epstein scandal symbolizes a disturbing pattern of powerful elites escaping accountability, protected by their influence and connections. Figures like Bill Clinton and Larry Summers move through this landscape largely unscathed, while others, especially outsiders or disruptors like Donald Trump, face intense scrutiny and vilification. Carney's role in this dynamic is complicated. His elite ties position him as part of the system many feel is broken, yet he is expected to lead a country hungry for justice, transparency, and meaningful change. The result is a profound disconnect between Canada's political leadership and its citizens. Voters increasingly question who really holds power in Ottawa and beyond. Is it the elected officials who claim to serve the public or the hidden networks of financial and political elites pulling the strings? Carney's faltering public image exemplifies this struggle, his leadership seen as constrained and compromised by forces beyond his control or willing to manipulate him for their own ends. Though Carney entered office with a strong mandate from the April 2025 election, the initial optimism has faded. His inability to rise above elite pressures and deliver tangible benefits to Canadians has sowed frustration and doubt. The complexity of Canada's political and economic challenges requires more than technocratic management. It demands courage and transparency, qualities many feel Carney lacks. In conclusion, Mark Carney crumbles again under pressure from political elites and powerful predators because his tenure highlights the larger conflict at the heart of Canadian politics today. His leadership illustrates the dangers when political figures become too enmeshed with elite interests, risking the trust and support of the very people they were elected to serve. As Canada watches closely, the question remains whether the country will demand more accountability and reform or continue to accept governance shaped and limited by these powerful, often invisible forces. The future of Canadian democracy depends on that choice.